Joining me via Skype from New York is Michael Zakkour. He's a founder of the consulting organization 5 New Digital. He's also the author of New Retail, Born in China, Going Global. Michael, I was in Beijing back in December, and in a way it just seemed like China was positioned from an economic standpoint to kind of deal pretty well with the pandemic. There's so much e-commerce there, and you know, people don't really carry currency or credit cards. Everything's done with their mobile devices. So how have things changed with the pandemic? Have things accelerated even more? What's the landscape look like?
Yeah, so my last trip to Beijing and Shanghai was also in December before things got shut down. And what had already happened at that point was Alibaba, JD, Tencent, Kaola, and Pinduoduo had built robust ecosystems. They moved on from the question of online versus offline and who's winning, and they developed a model called unified commerce and new retail. And the 5 new of that is new retail, new consumption, new technology, new finance, and new logistics. And it turned out to be the perfect formula to not only survive the COVID crisis in China from a consumer, brand, and marketplace point of view, it actually accelerated the changes that were already taking place. And so I've long maintained that China is a good 3 to 4 years ahead of the West and the rest of the world in building this new retail unified commerce ecosystem. And they certainly didn't build it to be pandemic proof, but the pandemic actually accelerated the success of what they'd already built.
So let's add another new. It's a whole new world, and as you say, they were positioned for that. So how important is e-commerce going to be as China rebounds from you know, the economic efforts of what's happened as a result of the coronavirus?
Well, that's a great question, and we have to look at it from 2 ways. The integration of online, offline technology and logistics for these new retail ecosystems saved China from an absolute consumer and needed goods perspective as it peaked, right? So those ecosystems actually prevented untold misery. Imagine if people were in the streets, they couldn't get food, they couldn't get delivery, they couldn't go out, and yet what Alibaba and JD and Pinduoduo and others did was they had these ecosystems built that were ready-made for a crisis. Where do we go from here? China was already on a upward trajectory where roughly 20% of all transactions were made on a digital format. So whether the store was informing the online purchase or the online information powered the store purchase, either way, what we've realized in China is there's a system of digital commerce. And it differs from e-commerce in that every aspect of the commercial enterprise, from making, moving, distributing, selling, marketing, buying, and returning products, has been digitized. And so that's been accelerated even further, where roughly 15 to 20% of all consumer purchases in China had a digital element to roughly 50%, and now we only see that going up.